In this lesson, we'll create an oil pastel image of some sunflowers in about an hour. Hello there everyone, Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and in this lesson we're going to take a look at creating some sunflowers with oil pastels. We'll build up painterly applications to build up depth and color, but also create a textural surface. So let's go ahead and dive right in. In this lesson, we'll use Sakura Craypas oil pastels and Sennelier oil pastels on Canson Mi-Teintes pastel paper. We'll start here with an H pencil, just lightly sketching out a loose sketch of our sunflowers. We're not going to worry about the details here, and we're not really going to worry about defining strong contour lines. We just want a very loose sketch in place. We'll be doing most of our drawing / painting with the oil pastel applications. But we do need to know where our flowers are located, so essentially we're defining the relationships between the positive and negative spaces in this early stage of the drawing. You'll notice that I'm not placing a lot of pressure on the pencil, and I want to create grooves or indentations in the surface, and I'm using a hard graphite pencil as opposed to a softer one because I don't want the graphite to mix in with the oil pastel applications. With our loose sketch in place, we're ready to start with the oil pastel applications. I'm going to start by layering some of the Craypas oil pastels. These are made by Sakura. When compared to the Sennelier oil pastels, which will add layer in the process, these Sakura Craypas oil pastels are much harder, so less of the material is left on the surface. This makes them a great underlayment for softer oil pastels like the Sennelier. We'll start with a light yellow and then a darker medium yellow-green here, just getting some color and material on the surface. You can see these applications are still relatively loose as we can still see the texture of the paper through these applications. Here again, we're just defining shapes. We're going to define the details as we continue the layering process. Now I've switched over to a yellow ochre, and we're going to start to get some contrast in the flowers as we add the yellow ochre. We're going to add the yellow ochre mostly in the areas where we see shadow in the flower petals and of course in the center portion of the sunflower. Now we're going to switch over to a lighter yellow green, and just like the yellow ochre added some contrast in the flower petals, this lighter yellow green will add some contrast to our petals and stems. With this application, you can see more of the material is making its way into the tooth of the paper, and this is covering up some of the color of the paper from showing through. Now we'll move over to a burnt sienna. This is going to add a little bit more depth and more interest in the color. We're still working with the Craypas oil pastels at this stage. And we'll go a little bit darker with a dark brown. Of course, we're going to start to define some of the shadows with this application. These include the shadows around the center portion of the sunflower at the top, and also some of the shadows on the flower petals. We're not going to use black at all in this drawing. We're going to stick with dark browns and dark blues in order to create the darkest values within the scene. If we used a black, it would make the composition look flat and unnatural, so we're going to avoid black in this case. We'll use this dark brown again in all the areas where we see shadow, where we see some of those darkest values. This includes the areas on the stems and the flower petals, as well as the leaves. And as we do so, we start to get more contrast, and we start to have a better idea of the light within the scene. Oil pastels are at their best when they're layered. I like to think of oil pastels as large colored pencils since the application process is very similar. It's more difficult to go over the top of applications with oil pastels than it is with soft pastels, but you can still affect the color underneath with additional layers, just like with colored pencils. So the layering process is very similar to colored pencils. As you can see, we've added a little bit of a darker blue in areas to add a little bit more depth to the color. Blue works here because yellow and blue make green. Blue is the cooler of those two colors, so we can use it in some of the shadowed areas. We'll also continue to enhance the relationships of the different values of green as well, adding some darker greens here and there, and also some lighter yellow green. We'll continue to be patient as we work and allow the relationships between the colors and values to eventually create the illusion that we're looking for in this drawing/painting. It's important to be patient and not rush the process. Even though our final result is going to look a little bit looser and more impressionistic, it's important to still be patient and work slowly. Here we're adding a bit of yellow over the top of some of our applications. This is more of a primary yellow. This will add some of the middle values that we need on some of the flower petals. It's okay for colors to mix on the surface. This, of course, contributes to the illusion of depth in the color. Now I've switched over to the Sennelier oil pastels, and there's quite a bit of difference between these oil pastels and the ones we were using previously. The Sennelier oil pastels are much softer, and you can build up impasto applications, meaning that you can have a textural surface with your applications, making it look more like thick oil paint. We'll start here with a primary yellow, again adding a little bit more color to our flower petals. Now we'll go a little bit lighter with an additional yellow. As you can see, this broadens the range of value and increases the contrast. As we continue to make these applications, we should continually go back and forth between the reference with our eyes. We're looking for areas to add these bits of lighter value. And of course, like always, it doesn't have to be exactly like the reference. We're using the reference exactly as that, a reference. We're not trying to create an exact duplication of the photo. We want our finished piece of art to be more interesting than the photograph in the end. Now I've switched over to a yellow ochre with the Sennelier oil pastels. You can see that this color is a little bit different than the yellow ochre that we used from the Craypas set. And now a lighter yellow-green, again for added variety. The marks made with the Sennelier oil pastels are more like brushstrokes made with a thick oil paint, so we can be a bit more expressive with our strokes as we make these applications. Now a bit of a darker, cooler green, mainly in the shadowed areas underneath some of the leaves, and then a light yellow-green to create some highlights. You may have noticed that since we're using two different brands of oil pastels, the colors are a little bit different. This, of course, just adds to the variety in the piece. We'll continue with our light yellow-green, adding bits of highlight where the light is filtering through. And you'll notice that this light yellow-green is not the exact same color of the highlighted areas that we see in the reference, which is perfectly okay. Now a bit of a darker brown here and there to bring out more of the shadows. Now we'll return to this demonstration in just a second, but I want to tell you about the oil pastel course. Now if you love oil pastels and you'll love the oil pastel course, this is a complete course that we offer over at thevirtualinstructor.com. In this course, we explore the foundations and techniques for drawing and painting with oil pastels. Each module in the course is presented in a logically sequenced video series, and each lesson builds on the last, easing you gently into more complex subjects. You'll learn basic application techniques, the basics of color theory, how to draw using observational techniques, how to develop a simple still life with a monochromatic color scheme, how to use contrast to create colorful oil pastel drawings that pop, and much, much more. Now, for a limited time, I'm offering this course to you at 20% off the regular price. Just use the promo code COURSE20 at checkout to get that 20% off. You can learn more in the description below. I will leave a link directly to this course. Now, back to the demonstration as we continue to darken up some of the shadows here with a dark brown. Now you can see how dark this brown appears. It almost looks like black, but it looks a whole lot more natural, and that's why we're avoiding black in this particular piece. Now with a middle yellow-green, we're going to fill in some of those middle values here and there. And as you can see, our painting has gone through several different stages, and it will continue to do so until we are finished. Allow your painting / drawing to go through similar stages. Of course, you don't have to replicate every mark that I make if you're creating your own. Be creative and create your own unique piece of art if you're following along. Now, let's go back here with a light yellow, and again, we're going to make some of these highlights stand out a bit more. You'll notice that the directional stroking that I'm making here is incredibly important in conveying the form of the subject. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about your directional strokes. And of course, think of these strokes as paintbrush strokes. This will add a lot of life and interest to your final piece. All right, now we're ready to start adding some contrast in the sky behind our flowers, and this should make our flowers really stand out and pop. We're going to start here with a middle blue, so we're thinking more like a primary blue here initially. I'm going to make mostly vertical strokes as I'm adding this color in. The stroking in the background is going to play an important role into the overall feel of the piece, so most of my strokes are going to be vertical here. Of course, as we go around the edges, we'll have to change the direction a little bit, but you'll see in the end that our final version will have mostly vertical strokes in the background. We'll go ahead and carefully fill in some of the negative spaces in between before switching over to a lighter blue. And we'll start at the top of the picture plane with this lighter blue, again working our way down from the top to the bottom and filling in some of the negative spaces in between. Here you can really see that vertical stroking and how that is going to play into the overall feel of the finished painting. Now we're going to use a bit of lighter blue here at the bottom. You can see that there is a transition from darker blue at the top to a lighter blue at the bottom. We'll bring this up just a little bit over halfway before switching over to a white, and we'll add that white right over the top of these blue applications, creating an even lighter blue. Now that we have some contrast in place, we can go back and do some more refinement to our sunflowers. We'll start here with a dark green, and then we'll switch over quickly to the dark brown again, creating some more areas of shadow. At this point, our drawing is really starting to resemble more of a painting. That's why pastel images are often referred to as paintings, even though the process is clearly a drawing process since we're applying the media dry. We can continue to go back in with bits of blue here and there as we lose edges and then rediscover those edges around the sunflower. A bit more here with the dark green, just refining some of the shapes of some of the leaves. And then we'll go back to our primary yellow over the top of some of these dark applications that we've made. There'll be some mixing that occurs here, creating a darker yellow in areas. We'll continue to refine the shapes of the flowers, and you can see we've got quite a bit of freedom here. Now that we've got a lot of oil pastel in the background, we can just pull these yellow applications right over the top of the blue and create some interesting marks. Now we're going to go back with a bit of yellow ochre and continue to add some of the middle to dark values. And at this point, we're getting quite a bit of layered applications on the surface, and you're starting to get a better idea of how the finished piece will look. A few highlights here and there at the top of our predominant sunflower, and we're doing this with kind of a light beige color. Then a few more shadows around the center portion of our flower at the top with the dark brown. And then a bit more with the yellow-green, adding a few more stems and leaves here and there. Now we'll make some of our highlights pop out a little bit more with a light yellow-green. So you can see we continue to switch back and forth between the color selections that we've made continuing to build up that color and also the applications on the surface, creating more of a painterly effect. Now we'll bring out some more shadows again with the dark brown. And then we can continue to refine the edges of things here and there with a bit more blue. Or refine the edges of the distant trees at the bottom, first with a bit of blue and then with a bit of white, making sure that it's lighter than the value above it. And then we'll use that white to create a few more strong highlights on some of the flower petals. When working with oil pastels, I like to use a drafting brush. You'll find that some of the oil pastel builds up on the surface and needs to be brushed away. Some of these little small crumbs here and there, a drafting brush works great for this. Then we'll continue with our yellow here, adding just a little bit more life and interest to some of the flower petals. We'll do so with both a primary yellow and a lighter yellow. And then we'll continue to refine the edges of our flowers, doing some negative painting here with a light blue. And at this point, I see I need a little bit more contrast between the shadows and highlights, so I'll go back again with the dark brown. And now we can remove the tape, revealing our completed oil pastel painting that we spent just about an hour on. And here's a closer look at the finished result. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you were able to pick up a couple of things here and there. If you're new to the channel, make sure that you give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Click on the notification bell so you're notified when new videos like this are uploaded. Also, if you want to take your drawing and painting skills to another level, then you're missing out if you don't check out the membership program over at thevirtualinstructor.com. There we have a variety of courses on a variety of subject matter and media. We do live lessons each week. These live lessons are broadcast for members and recorded and stored in our vault. You can go back and watch any of the live lesson series we've ever done. This is real-time art instruction. We also do weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute. And there's also a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers that includes all the resources you need to teach. If you want to check out our membership program, you could do so for free for a week. I'll leave a link in the description below. And if you want to just check out 3 of our course videos and ebooks for free, I'll leave a link in the description below for that as well. That will put you on our mailing list so I can send you a lot of free art lessons. As always, thanks so much for watching this video, and I wish you all the very best in your artistic success.